A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Primetime News, coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudannayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
President says he won't backtrack on the decision to promote organic farming. Minister Mahinda Amravira apologizes to farmers. Revelation on government's moves to import vehicles through a racketeer. Protest at Valikada prison continues. No clemency for inmates considered a threat to security.
Now the stories in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that he will not backtrack on steps to promote organic farming aimed at creating a more healthy generation in the country. The president made this statement during a meeting with the Mahasangha headed by the Mahanayaka Thera of the Askari chapter yesterday.
The president assures that farmers will not be inconvenienced by this program. The president highlighted that many farming communities in the country are suffering with kidney diseases and various other non-communicable diseases caused by the use of chemical fertilizer. He pointed out that $400 million is spent annually for the import of chemical fertilizer. The president informed the Mahasangha that shifting to organic fertilizer would enable the government to provide this money to the farmers. Thereafter, President called on the Anunayak of the Siam Maha sect of the Askari chapter, Most Venerable Venduruwe Upalithero and Most Venerable Dhammadasithero, and obtained their blessings. The president also met the registrar of the Askari chapter, Most Venerable Madagama Dhammanandathero, and the deputy registrar, Most Venerable Narampanave Anandathero. The president also called upon the chief incumbent of the Rajopavanarama temple, Venerable Kappatiyagoda Sirivimalathero.
Minister Namal Rajapaksa, who is currently touring Jaffna, declared open an organic fertilizer production facility in Karavedi today.
Facilities are to be set up across all 9 provinces to boost the production of organic fertilizer in line with the government's policy. The first phase of the project was launched in Karavedi under the patronage of Minister Namal Rajapaksa today. Government and opposition parliamentarians, the governor of the northern province and the district secretary of Jaffna were among those present at the occasion. This is the period in which we are transitioning from chemical fertilizer to organic fertilizer in line with the President's policy. At a time when we are attempting to boost the production of compost, increase the quality of fertilizer and find a solution to the problems faced by farmers, we have decided to set up these facilities through Roshan Ranasinghe's State Ministry. We hope to convert about 50 tons of waste collected daily in Jaffna into fertilizer. This will see a solution to the waste management problem and will also resolve issues faced by farmers due to the lack of fertilizer.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Protests staged by farmers demanding for fertilizer intensified today.
Farmers staged protests in a number of areas including Eppawala, Galgamuwa, Uvaparnagama, Tamuthegama, Ambalantota and Kandy. This protest was staged in the Eppawala town.
මුළු රටටම කණ්ඩ දෙන බත දෙන ගොවියා බල්ලා බලලා ඉඳලා රජවරු දක්වා බත් කණ්ඩ දුන්නේ ගොවියෝ. ඒ ගොවියට බඩට ගහපු එකෙකුටවත් හරි ගියේ නෑ මහත්තයෝ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට මේ දැන් වෙන වෙන්න දෙයක් නෑ. පාරේ මරුණත් එකයි වෙලේ මරුණත් එකයි. ජනාධිපති මන්දිරයට යනකම් අපි මේ සටන ගෙනියනවා.
මේක ගෝවියාගේ විතරක් ප්‍රශ්නේ නෙමෙයි. 100% කාබනික කරපු ලෝකෙ කිසි රටක් තියෙනවා නම් අපිට කියන්න අපිට කෘෂිකර්මය පිළිබඳ අවබෝධයක් තියෙනවා. මේ පක්ෂ වැඩක් නැහැ, පාට වැඩක් නැහැ, කුල වැඩක් නැහැ. මේ රටේ හැම මිනිහම එකතු වෙලා මේ ගොවියන් මත අත දෙන බත්පත කකා වීදුරු කාමරයක ඉඳගෙන මේ බත්පතට කෙලින්න නම් හදන්නේ. ඔය මැති ඇමති උරුන්ට කෙලින්න නැවත වතාවක් අපි සූදානම්.
A protest was held at the Ihalagiribaba fields in Galgamuwa.
ජයවා කියලා ඡන්දේ දුන්නත් දැන් දියව් කියලා ගස් වලට ඉඳලා තියෙන්නේ. තව ටික කාලයක් යනකොට මෙවුවා පුරාම වෙනවා. පුරා වුණාන් පස්සේ මේවා 100ට උලවුනේ රටේ යනවා. අපිට පස් තමයි කන්න වෙන්නේ. දී වනබර ආසෞසක ගොවියගේ දුක ගන්නේ නැද්ද? අපේ ගොවියා බඩගින්නේ.
These are potato farmers in Davuldena, Uvaparnagama.
දෙවියනේ ඔබට ගොවියගේ දුක පෙනෙනවාද?
කරමුලින්ම අපා දැම්මා මේ කලටික හොඳට මෑති පොර නැතුව අපේ ගොවිපින් මුළුමනින්ම ආලු වෙලා.
Farmers staged a protest in the Tabuttegama town today.
ඒ ගස් කහ වෙලා රටට ආදායම නැහැ.
Small-scale estate owners in Kandy also staged a protest opposite the Small Estate Development Authority in Gannoruwa.
You have two countries, I have one. A president of your second country, President Eisenhower of the United States, said that farming looks mighty easy when your plow is a pencil and you're 1,000 miles from the cornfield. There is a group of people who plow fields like this surrounding you. They don't plow fields. They make tea with their pens. There are people who try to use fertilizer with their pens. If chemical fertilizer is not healthy, give us an alternative. Do not ask us to produce this and then use it ourselves. When we don't get tea leaves, we become weak. We are not a group of people who take a cent from this government. We are people who earn for this government.
අපි සද්ද පහක් මේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ණයට ගන්න මිනිස්සු නෙවෙයි. අපි රජයට සල්ලි හොයලා දෙන මිනිස්සු.
We express our regret over this situation faced by farmers. As a person representing an area that is dependent on agriculture, I wish to apologize to the farmers affected by the shortage of fertilizer. That is because some farmers have been unable to cultivate their crops. The president suspended the import of chemical fertilizer for a reason. This decision was made with the intention of reaping benefits in the next Maha cultivation season. At that time, the agriculture department notified us that there is sufficient fertilizer to last the entire Yala cultivation season. But unfortunately, those areas didn't receive fertilizer. We express our regret over that. This was taken up in cabinet thrice, but a solution has not been found for that. We express our regret for that as well. Once they came into power, they amassed more power through the 20th Amendment. The parliamentarians, state ministers and ministers voted for the 20th Amendment in Parliament. We know that Sri Lanka was ruled by kings. Those kings were in love with the country's people. They constructed vavas, dargabas and built the country through agriculture. They were called our kings because they protected our country. But these kings are not like that. There is no point of apologizing after allowing these kings to amass power.
Meanwhile, a protest was staged in Hasalaka opposing the fuel price hike and the rise of cost of living. Farmers of Minipe and Ududumbara attended the protest organised by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
No one understands the woes of mothers. Prices of other commodities have been increased since the fuel price hike. How can we feed our children? We are unable to engage in jobs as well. If possible, address these problems while visiting the people.
while protests were staged against the fuel price hike in Kirindiwala today. A group including MP Horana Rajakaruna were present at the protest organised by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
We are in a sorry state across all fronts. Prices of commodities have risen due to the fuel price hike. Gas prices have been increased by 405 rupees. Farmers don't have fertilizer. The President, Prime Minister and the government have failed in all aspects. The vaccination drive has turned out to be unsuccessful. 600,000 people are waiting for the second dose of the jab. The said 600,000 doses would be imported from Japan, but that is a lie. We were expecting the President to announce some relief in his address. A person who watched that has wasted his electricity. I felt like dashing the television on the floor.
A protest was held in Galagedera opposing the fuel price hike and the rising cost of living. The protest was organised by the members of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
Residents of several areas including Padukka Udagama, Vevila staged a protest demanding the renovation of the Padukka Udagama Avisavella road, which was damaged by a landslide. A portion of the road had been damaged due to a landslide on the 4th of this month. Residents are forced to use alternative roads to travel to Avisavella and Padukka due to this reason.
දැන් මේ පාර කැල්ල මාසයක් විතර වෙනවා මේකෙන් අපේ දලු කඩා ගන්න ඒව දෙන්නේ ඔක්කොම ලොරියෙන්නේ මේ පැත්තේ නම් ඒ ලොරියෙන්නේ නැහැ දවස් 3-4කට පස්සේ තමයි ලොරියක් එන්නේ.
Residents resorted to construct their own road after authorities failed to address the matter. Residents also point out that several locations along the road are at a risk of landslides.
ඉන්න ඉඩමේ ඉන්න බයයි මොකද මේක නායන ප්‍රදේශයක් මේ ඔක්කොම දැන් 15 කැපිල්ල තියෙන්නේ සම්පූර්ණ නායන ප්‍රදේශයක එතන ගෙවල් තුනකට අයින් වෙන්න කියලා තියෙනවා.
Tour guides at the Kandy Reserve engaged in a protest demanding relief from authorities. They expressed the following views to the media following an hour-long silent protest. These tourist centres were closed until further notice due to the April 21st attacks and the COVID-19 pandemic. This was the livelihood of 20 tour guides. We provided for our families through this. We are helpless now. We have no way to live. Death row inmates at the Valikada and Mahara prisons are continuing to stage a hunger strike. Prison spokesperson Chandaneka Nayaka said that some death row inmates at the Valikada prison who called off a hunger strike yesterday had resumed their demonstration atop a building. The General Secretary of the Committee for Protecting Rights of Prisoners, Sudesh Nandimal, pointed out that some inmates at the Dumbara and Busa prisons have launched a hunger strike as well.
There are prisoners who have served time for more than 10, 15 and 20 years. Some inmates have been sentenced to life imprisonment. We call on the President to provide the same clemency to everyone.
Meanwhile, the Department of Prisons has said that inmates who stage protests atop buildings and are a threat to prison security will not be considered while granting pardons.
Residents of Ridimalia staged a silent protest over the construction of a substandard road from Pinnagolla to Veeragolla. A tense situation arose following the arrival of Ridimalia, the Pradesh Sabha chairman, before the protest.
Former provincial councillor of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, Sudat Balagalla, joined the protest which was due to start at 10 a.m. A tense situation arose after the Ridimalia, the Pradesh Sabha chairman, Nishanta Jayasundara, arrived at the location before the demonstration. The situation was brought under control with the intervention of the Ridimali at the police.
The Ridimali at the Pradesh Sabha chairman arrived with a mob and attacked us. There are many shortcomings in this road. This has been constructed without any quality. If area residents don't oppose this, who will do it? We gathered here hoping to call on the government to refurbish this road. When we started the demonstration, we received a call informing us that a group has been sent to attack us. A group including the Ridimali at the Pradesh Sabha chairman attacked us. This has been constructed with the hard-earned money of our mothers and fathers. They have completed the construction of this road. Whose money is this? Parts of the road are peeling off. This must be constructed in line with proper standards. They haven't installed railings. They have simply placed barrels on the side. Aren't they ashamed of this? The Pradesh Sabha chairman who violated quarantine laws must be arrested.
The road from Pinnagolla to Veeragolla spans 4 kilometers. Residents point out that certain sections of the completed road is in a dilapidated condition. Iron barrels have been placed on the sides of the road instead of rails.
Various views were expressed today on the President's recent address to the nation.
What did President Gotabaya Rajapaksa say? He spoke about the country's situation and the steps that need to be taken to save it. If the people listen to it, they can observe a strong message. He did not scream or crack jokes. The president didn't speak like that. When President Gotabaya Rajapaksa came into power, people assumed that raids and abductions will be carried out using white vans. No, the president acted democratically. There are certain faults. We are not denying it. Every person has a good and a bad side. Mahinda Rajapaksa is the leader who ended 3 decades of war. But people gave their mandate to someone else. That is because maybe they saw weaknesses in him. Take a look at what is being said on Facebook. A country cannot be governed according to Facebook. 6.9 million people didn't give their mandate for the president to govern the country according to Facebook. The president has the mandate to save the country from this economic crisis. Therefore, Basil Rajapaksa's return to parliament on the 6th could be a part of this plan.
Bringing Basil Rajapaksa to parliament and saying that prices of goods wouldn't have been increased if he was in the country highlights the government's failure to resolve issues, including those stemming from the fuel price.
ආණ්ඩුව අසමත් වෙලා තිබෙනවා මේ තිබෙන තෙල් මිල හා යථා තිබෙන දේශපාලන අරුබුද වලට විසඳුම් ලබා දෙන්න. ළඟදී අර නැවක් ගිනි ගත්තනේ. මුලදී නැව ගින්න නිවන්න හැදුවා. හරි ගියේ නෑ.
A vessel caught fire recently. They tried to douse the fire, but to no avail. They then tried to tow the vessel away. Ultimately, the vessel sank. This will be the same thing if Basil comes. What does it mean if the economy will improve after Basil comes? Does it mean that Mahinda Rajapaksa has failed as a finance minister? Isn't his brother Mahinda Rajapaksa who is the finance minister? Does it imply that Mahinda Rajapaksa has caused an economic downfall?
බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා පාර්ලිමේන්තු යන එකේ අරුමකුත් නැහැ ඇමතිකම් ගන්න එකේ අරුමකුත් නැහැ.
It's not surprising to see Basil Rajapaksa enter parliament. It won't be surprising if he is given a ministerial portfolio either. The 20th Amendment has already paved the way for that. But the problem is fuel prices won't decrease. People don't have meals. Farmers don't have fertilizer. Cost of goods have risen. Children don't have facilities to learn. The country is in a very sorry state. Fishermen cannot go to sea. The sea is polluted. Farmers can't engage in farming. Their lands have been destroyed. Children cannot go to schools as schools are closed. They speak about national security, wiping out terrorism and identifying bombers. If the government can't even detect the stocks hidden at rice mills, how can they even speak about national security?
මේ වීමෝල් වල වීහංගල තියෙනක හොයාගන්න බැරි ආණ්ඩුව කොහොමද ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව ගැන කතා කරන්නේ?
The project to clean up the Tissa Maharama River under Sri Lanka-Chinese joint venture has been temporarily suspended. This is following a directive by the Department of Archaeology. Against such a backdrop, venerable Theras have expressed their views on the project.
We have our way when it comes to refurbishing wevers, enhancing the irrigation system and removing plants such as salvinia. If we dig a certain part of the wever, the quality of the water in the area would drop. An individual convicted of destroying archaeological property can be sentenced to 5 years in prison and a fine of 50,000 rupees. Permission has not been obtained from the archaeology department on this. With whose permission are they attempting to refurbish the wever? Aren't the country's archaeological laws applicable to the Chinese military? How can Chinese military officers be allowed to enter Sri Lanka? Who will bear the responsibility for this? Have we lost our sense of sovereignty and independence? The laws are being neglected due to these activities. During Mahinda Rajapaksa's regime, I was appointed as his advisor. I did not ask for it. We advised him on the refurbishment of wevers. There are 30,000 wevers. Only the people of our country understand the water cascade system. Foreigners are not aware of that. It was the members of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna who held ministerial portfolios on this subject during Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga's presidency. We told them not to dig up wevers. Therefore, we must follow the ancient system. If we obtain the advice of foreign engineers, then we will lose our wevers. Don't do this. This will land us in trouble. Only the people in our country understand how to maintain and refurbish wevers. Wevers are only present in our country. There are people of that caliber in this country. Their advice must be sought. News First reported yesterday about the unapproved sea cucumber farm carrying out in a joint venture between Sri Lanka and China on the Puvarasan Island in the Punari Divisional Secretariat in the Kilinochchi district. A Chinese national had been working at the farm when our correspondent visited the farm today.
What country? China. China.
When News First inquired the National Aquaculture Development Authority of this matter yesterday, the authority said that steps have been taken to suspend the project following a site inspection. If so, what are these Chinese nationals doing on this island today?
Sri Lanka will be issuing a special coin to commemorate the centenary celebrations of the Communist Party of China. The Sunday Times reported that this is the first time in which a commemorative coin will be extended to a foreign party. The central bank has engaged in the practice of issuing commemorative coins to mark significant milestones of diplomatic relations with foreign countries. The Communist Party of China will celebrate 100 years on the 1st of July.
The second dose of the Covishield vaccines will be administered among those above the age of 70 within the Colombo municipality limits starting from tomorrow. The Colombo Municipal Council's regional epidemiologist Dr. Dinuka Guruge said recipients of the vaccine will be notified about it through an SMS or a phone call in the due course.
Meanwhile, details have come to light that 425 out of 632 people who received vaccines at the office of the Galle District Health Services Director from the 5th to the 7th of June were from the Western Province. This was revealed in a name list submitted by the Southern Province Health Services Director to the Galle Police based on an order issued by the Galle Magistrate. The name list indicates that 1 resident each from Nuwara and Kandy, 2 from Mathura, 27 from Alpitia, 90 from Galle and 79 police officers had also received the jabs. Galle Crime Branch officers have launched a probe based on receiving information that several people from the Western Province had travelled through the Southern Expressway to receive the Covishield jab from the 5th to the 7th of June. The Southern Provincial Health Services Director had handed over the list of vaccine recipients to the police in keeping with the court order.
Sri Lanka's Health Ministry on Saturday released an updated version of the quarantine guidelines for travellers arriving in Sri Lanka. These regulations that will remain in effect from the 1st to the 31st of July will be applicable to Sri Lankan sailors, dual citizen tourists and foreigners with resident visas who are travelling to Sri Lanka. According to the regulations, Sri Lankans and dual citizens who have not been vaccinated will be directed to a hotel or a quarantine centre after a PCR test upon their arrival in the island. If they test negative in the second PCR test conducted between 11 and 14 days of their arrival, they will be discharged from the quarantine centre. In case a returnee tests positive for the virus, they will be transferred to an intermediate treatment centre. Fully vaccinated Sri Lankans and dual citizens will be subjected to a PCR test upon arrival. If they test negative, they will be directed to home quarantine under the supervision of the medical officer of health in the area. The home quarantine period of these returnees will end if they test negative for the virus in the PCR test conducted 14 days from their arrival. The Director General of Health Services has confirmed 39 COVID-19 deaths today. Accordingly, Sri Lanka's total tally of COVID-19 deaths has risen to 2,944. Meanwhile, 1,245 COVID-19 infections were detected today. This brings the total count of infected cases up to 252,996. 2,158 infected individuals had recovered from the virus within the last 24 hours. Sri Lanka's total recovery stands at 218,998.
Convener of Voice Against Corruption Vasanta Samarasinghe revealed of a cabinet paper that has been proposed to import vehicles today.
This is the cabinet paper presented to the Ministry of Finance 2021/065. It has been signed by Mahinda Rajapaksa. This cabinet paper has been presented to seek approval to their top 10 scam, through which they assemble the dismantled vehicle parts, register them and sell them. Mahinda Rajapaksa, who signed this paper, do not know what this contains. The Board of Investors granted a license to Vehicle Lanka in 2002 to establish a massive factory to assemble vehicle parts here in Sri Lanka through foreign investment of 500 million rupees. Just like they said they were going to set up the Volkswagen factory. But what is the difference? Through this, we will import the vehicle parts that have been dismantled in Japan, assemble them here in a garage, register the vehicles at the Department of Motor Traffic and sell them. After 4 years since the BOI granted the license to this company, the BOI informs the company in writing that no investment has been made to carry out this project, and that the company had only invested in 500,000 rupees instead of 5 million rupees. Therefore, the BOI informed Vehicle Lanka that it is not suitable to carry out this project and revoked their license. Even the court had informed this company not to step into court. We would like to ask the government as to how they are going to approve this project as a best investment project, which was deemed as one of the top 10 scams back in the day. We know that several ministers and MPs in the Gampaha district have been given vehicles. Plans are afoot to transfer the 25 billion rupees which is supposed to go to the treasury to the pockets of the Rajapaksas. One time the anti-corruption unit in Valana and the customs sealed this garage. But the owner of the garage broke the seal and sold 18 vehicles. But no investigations have been launched into that as of now because there are cabinet ministers who drive the vehicles bought from this smuggler.
A group including the leader of the Janasita Peramuna Venerable Batrabulle Seelaratana Thera and parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa arrived in Kandy today.
The group first called upon the Rajopavanaramadipati, Venerable Kappetiyagoda Sri Bimala Thero. Thereafter, the group called upon the Anunayaka of the Siam Maha sect of the Asgiri chapter, Most Venerable Vederuwe Upali Thero, and then called upon the Anunayaka of the Siam Maha sect of the Malvatu chapter, Venerable Niyangoda Vijitasiri Thero. The group then proceed to worship the temple of the sacred tooth relic.
Police have launched an operation to arrest the suspects behind the abduction and torture of 2 people in Kandy.
The 2 people who were abducted and taken to a mountain in Dalukolla are currently receiving treatment at the Kandy General Hospital. Police investigations revealed that the victims had been abducted on the 25th at 2:30 p.m. The victims were spotted on the mountains 2.5 kilometers away from Ampitiya.
මීට අදාළ සැකකරු වන්නේ පල්ලිකැලේ බලගොල්ල ප්‍රදේශයේ පදිංචි 30 හැවිරිදි.
It has been confirmed that one suspect is a 30-year-old in charge of a temple in Balagolla, Pallikale. The 2 victims had posted defamatory content on Facebook against the suspect, who is in charge of this temple in Ampitiya. The suspect had invited the victims to his residence in Balagolla. They had been abducted and taken away to Ampitiya, where they were tortured. They were nailed to logs and tortured by the suspects.
ලී කොට වලට තද කිරීමක් සිදු කර ඇති බවටත් ඇනගැසීමක් සිදු කර ඇති බවටත් වාර්තා වී තිබෙනවා.
An 8-foot crocodile was spotted at a house in Horana this morning.
Officers of the Min area Gane Walpala Wildlife Office arrived at the location and attempted to capture the crocodile. The officers managed to capture the crocodile after about an hour. Steps were taken to release the reptile to the Rambavila area of the Min area National Park.
Researchers have unveiled an ancient skull that could belong to a completely new species of human.
The team has claimed it is our closest evolutionary relative among known species of ancient human, such as Neanderthals and Homo erectus. Nicknamed Dragon Man, the specimen represents a human group that lived in East Asia at least 146,000 years ago. It was found in Harbin, northeast of China in 1933, but only came to the attention of scientists more recently. An analysis of the skull has been published in the journal The Innovation. The researchers say the discovery has the potential to rewrite the story of human evolution. The analysis suggests that it is more closely related to Homo sapiens than it is to Neanderthals.
And in sports news, former Sri Lankan cricket skipper Kumar Sangakkara says that Sri Lanka cricket's head coach Miki Arthur can focus on several areas concerning the team's development. He made these remarks following Sri Lanka's crushing defeat. Also in sports news, Colombo District Judge Arun Arudge issued an enjoining order on the 23rd of June 2021 preventing the holding of the election of the Executive Committee of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation. The election was scheduled to be held at the Ministry of Sports on the 28th of this month.
The enjoining order was issued by the district judge after considering a case filed by affiliates of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation on the basis that the election committee had granted voting rights to 21 sports clubs who are not members of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation as at the 31st of December 2020. An election committee that was appointed at a special general meeting of the Carom Federation of Sri Lanka in 2019 had approved a list of those who were granted voting rights, which excluded the 21 sports clubs that are not members of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation. However, a new election committee that was appointed by the Director General of Sports, who was appointed as the competent authority of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation in February 2021, had granted voting rights to the said 21 sports clubs, notwithstanding the objections raised by other affiliate clubs. Members of the former executive committee of the Sri Lanka Carom Federation and other affiliates have also lodged several complaints to the Election Committee, National Sports Appeals Committee, as well as the Minister of Sports Namal Rajapaksa against holding the Carom election. However, a considered decision on these complaints and objections had not been communicated.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Arundhati Mudannayaka, together with our interpreter this evening, Brian De Cruz. Good night.